God. Ugh.
Hello, hello.
Oh my goodness. If it isn't Jess Clay, first mate on this ship. Hello.
Hello, Hannah Herford, bosun. What on earth are you doing?
I'm just loading some bits on because we're about to set sail, I think.
We are, yes, I've been running late, I'm afraid.
As first mate, you're pretty delayed, but it's fine. It's fine. I've been getting stuff on. A lot of seagull food. Not sure why. Haven't asked. I've just been loading it.
Seagull food?
I know. Maybe the captain's drunk again and wants to throw it at seagulls flying by or something.
Well, I thought he'd changed his ways after that MCA inspection.
No, he's at the back singing sea shanties at passers-by at the moment. That's that sound you can hear, yeah. The ship's slowly sinking and the refit didn't do anything.
Oh. Well, here, pass me one of those boxes and I'll give you a hand.
Oh, great.
Jesus, what's in these?
Oh, dear.
Let's have a look. Oh, it's our audio from season 1.
Oh, there's so much of it.
Wasn't that fun? Season 1 was great.
So good. So good. We talked to some great people. We had such a laugh doing it. And there's more coming.
Yeah, we did speak to some great people last season, and we've been speaking to some amazing people during our time ashore. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Hannah?
So, we've been talking to women pretty much across the marine industry, maritime lawyers, academics, seaweed harvesters,
lighthouse keepers.
Oh my goodness, it is vast, and it's the most inspiring stuff I think we've done yet.
Yes, and listeners, you may remember our interviews this season are all related to the Seashees arm of the Rewriting Women into Maritime History project.
Yes.
From the Lloyds Register Foundation, which we have been very excited to be partnering with this season.
Yeah, it's been great.
So we're in for an absolute treat. What else have you been up to during your time off?
Moved house.
Me too.
What?
Oh, so we've both had just some minor life-altering adventures during our time ashore.
That's it. Changing careers, starting education, extending work hours, moving house, dealing with life.
You know.
Glad to be back.
Yeah. Glad to be back aboard our very familiar but still absolutely crap boat.
Yeah.
Got about an hour to kill before we're setting off, have we?
Yeah, that's right.
Should we have a cup of tea?
Let's have a cup of tea.
Cool. Oh, it's quite nice to be back aboard.
It really is, actually. It is quite cosy down here.
Tell me about how the MCA survey went.
It wasn't great. I wasn't here when the survey happened, but there were some grumbles about maritime law infringements. Apparently the ship isn't particularly legal, and neither's the skipper. But Jess, I really thought that maritime law would only be appropriate for those kind of big ships, like the container ships or oil spills that happen where the environment gets damaged, or, you know, say a big ship gets stuck in a really vital shipping canal in the world during a pandemic, but perhaps not.
Yeah, you're right. Maritime law encompasses all those big events. So, like when a boat sinks, who pays to have it recovered? If there is a spill, for example, from a boat sinking, how MARPL gets involved. So MARPL basically deals with pollution at sea. Maritime law has a say in the construction of ships to make sure that things are safe for people. It dictates what equipment's needed on board, how to prevent accidents. So it's a whole scope of everything from looking after seafarers and passengers on ships, the construction of the ships themselves, and what happens when things go wrong. So maritime law is a huge, fascinating subject.
Wow.
You were quite invested in the Ever Given event, though, weren't you?
Oh, the Ever Given, yes, the Ever Given. Well, I mean, You know what, Jess? I reckon quite a few of our listeners would have heard of this disaster, this catastrophe.
It's quite recent, wasn't it?
It was 2021. On the 23rd of March, one of the largest container vessels in the world, the Ever Given, got lodged in the Suez Canal, blocking basically the main artery of global shipping.
Just a small event then.
It's just a small event. I mean, like, I was working at Eco Clipper at the time, so with a sail cargo company, you know, if you keep making these ships bigger, the infrastructure isn't there to cope with them, something's going to go wrong.
Yeah.
What I found mildly amusing was that everyone was like, my Amazon order hasn't arrived yet. Or like, you know what? Like, there's a part for my car which I've been waiting for like 2 weeks now. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is what happens when a spanner is put in the works of our global shipping industry.
The sea affects everybody.
Exactly. It was it's crazy. I mean, it was on top of the pandemic as well, and there was a major crisis with container shipping anyway because there were no crews to be able to crew them.
Yeah.
So it was a nightmare. I mean, okay, so the basics for the Ever Given disaster, I'll lay it out. It's one of the largest shipping containers in the world. Its length is 400 metres and its width is 59 metres.
Wow.
400 metres is about the size of 4 football pitches.
God.
That's huge. It has a max capacity of 20,000 containers.
20,000 containers?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's unreal. This thing was actually carrying at the time 18,300, so it wasn't at max capacity, but it's still, I mean, I can't even picture that in my mind.
Jesus.
It was built in 2018 and it's operated by Evergreen Marine, which I believe is a Taiwanese company. It was bound for the Netherlands, and as most ships do, you kind of go up in line in the Suez Canal. And the Suez Canal was built to prevent ships from having to go around the Cape of Good Hope.
Yes, dangerous.
It turns out that because of the huge tailback that this grounding caused, some ships actually did go round the Cape of Good Hope, which added like 5 to 10 days to their journey, which is a catastrophe for people waiting for goods, cheap goods from China. For us seafarers, 5 to 10 days is nothing. That's like, yeah, okay, that's just the wind's changed direction.
So I'm already seeing parts of this story where maritime law would have come into play. So that's really interesting.
Yes.
So obviously, with one boat being stuck, the damage it could cause to the Suez Canal, who pays for that? How everyone else was delayed. Mm-hmm. If ships had perishable goods. And I seem to remember a story about livestock on some of the vessels as well.
Yeah, that was going around.
Were not live by the time they got off.
No. And also, you know, bear in mind, it was stuck for 6 days. So if you think of the bottleneck that created on a canal as well, it's not like ships can easily turn around and go back the way they came. This is like the worst motorway crash ever, in that people literally can't reverse. God. So yeah, you had, it crept up to like 450 container ships, all fuel ships. They were carrying all sorts, fuel tankers, all of that.
Lots and lots of goods, like millions and millions of tons, I would imagine, of stuff.
The Lloyds list showed that the stranded ship held up an estimated 9.6 billion US dollars of trade along the waterway each day. So it's 6 days. I know, it's crazy. That equates to $400 million and 3.3 million tons of cargo an hour. Or, if you really want to get into it, $6.7 million a minute.
Jeez.
Yeah, it affected everything.
So do we know who was found at fault? How did maritime law come into play with it then? What was the actual result?
Yeah. So the main thing was it was a gust of wind that blew it off course. Yeah, there was reportedly quite high winds at that time and like a sandstorm and stuff. But the Egyptian authorities also said it could have been also to do with personnel on board or technology at fault. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty wishy-washy. Like I've read a couple of articles now and that's kind of a bit wishy-washy.
Yeah.
What happened immediately was the ship actually got impounded by the Egyptian authorities because the owners and the insurance company weren't willing to pay the initial amount of damages.
Okay.
So that was, $900 million in damage that they were meant to pay. So it was impounded, and then they eventually came to an agreement, and the people that would have been involved in that from a legal point of view is the owners of the ship, the insurers of the ship, and the Canal Authority. Like you said, the Canal Authority, because of the damage caused to the canal, obviously the damage is caused to the ship. Who was at fault? Was it the wind?
And did the rest of the ships get compensation?
Yeah.
Like the knock-on effect to the other ships, the other 400 and however many it was. Mm-hmm. I suppose they all had to depend on their own insurance at that point.
I think so, yeah.
And then I imagine there would also have been a knock-on effect to the suppliers and the producers and the people who were buying the cargo, some of which would have been ruined.
Yeah.
And not to mention how that would have affected crew on board. So whether or not they were able to take their minimum hours of rest as they couldn't get off the ship.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it affected every single person in this world, probably, in some way. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. There is a huge page here about the legal compensation claims that were made and who shouldered the blame, and I'm not going to go into it because it's quite a dense piece of writing.
But we can certainly link that in the description for anyone who is super interested. And actually, this is super interesting.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Fascinating. But
that is a modern day container ship. What about like the trad scene, Jess? What do you know about anything where maritime law would have to come into play for traditional vessels?
Yeah, quite a few, unfortunately, going over the last sort of 20, 30 years or so. So there was Astrid and Asgard, who both, I think one of them sunk, I'm not sure about the other one. And then we've had quite a harrowing story of Maria Assumpta.
Okay.
From back in the mid-90s. She, at the time, was the oldest operational sailing vessel who had been launched back in 1850s, which is pretty impressive. So she would have been a very splendid vessel.
Yeah.
More recently, she had been a sail training vessel, charter boat. The foundering of the Maria Assumpta led to the deaths of 3 people.
God.
The cook, the assistant boatswain and the engineer. And essentially, Captain Litchfield was the sort of captain I think we've all experienced, unfortunately. Very overinflated ego, cuts corners, doesn't really... By all accounts, this is sort of a bit opinionated on my point, I suppose, but he had also previously captained another vessel, which also sank, and that incident killed 19 young trainees.
Crazy. Can't imagine that he's continued to have a licence and stuff.
No, well, there's several things where maritime law should have come into play, and corners were cut, blind eyes were turned, and all that kind of thing. Maria Assumpta had just had a big refit in the Gloucester docks. They were sort of running late. After refit, the boatyard had found that there was contamination in the fuel tanks. Captain Litchfield was so in a rush to get underway, he sort of disregarded that information, and they set off in really unfavourable weather down the Bristol Channel. A couple of days later, wanting to get into Padstow to seek shelter a bit faster, Captain Litchfield decided to try and take the tidal race between the Moles and Pentire Point on the North Cornwall coast.
Right. Which would mean that he'd be using the tide to his advantage so that he can get round the point quicker.
That's right, yeah. And a crowd had gathered on the cliffs despite the weather to see this impressive ship as she was now coming very close to the shore.
Oh, God.
He, instead of taking the safe route, decided to actually put a show on, so ordered more canvas to be raised. That in turn made the boat heel, and the contaminated fuel made its way into the engines. They failed, and he realised that he was on a very dangerous lee shore, which is when the wind is blowing you onto the shore. So it's a very dangerous situation to be in, especially when you now don't have any engines.
Sure, yeah.
He ordered 2 members of crew into the engine room to have a look at what was going on and put out a mayday. By the time he'd put out the mayday, it was way too late, and they foundered on the rocks. 1 member of crew was too terrified to jump to safety and was killed as the boat struck the rocks, and the 2 members of crew that were ordered into the engine room drowned. So what is even more shocking about this story is the fact that he was only given 18 months in prison, despite this being the second incident he'd been at the helm of, and deaths being caused.
Terrifying.
Yeah, I think he was convicted of manslaughter through negligence.
Yeah, sure. It's just really scary.
It's just sad. It's incredibly sad.
I mean, yeah, and I think this is a really interesting point about, like, who's to blame. Because when you are a captain of a ship, you have that utter responsibility to the welfare of the crew.
Yeah.
And you have to make the right choices for the safety of the ship.
Yeah.
It's shocking that he only got 18 months, let alone the damage done, obviously, to the ship.
Yeah, and the marine environment.
Sure, yeah. So whilst we can find and we know about some of these devastating situations where maritime lawyers had to come into play, who would know it better than a senior lawyer like Monica Kohli? She gives us a lowdown of her career, her experiences. She is involved in so many different things.
So many.
To name but one, she is the president of the Women's International Shipping and Trading Association UK. So, Monica, hello.
Hi.
Yeah, give us a bit of an introduction.
Hi, it's lovely to be here. Thank you very much for having me. Oh, God, it's so nice to talk about yourself. It feels like a therapy session, so that's great. My name is Monica Kohli. I am the president of WISTA UK, but something has to pay the bills, and I'm also a senior lawyer at GUARD, which is a P&I club. Anyone in the shipping industry will know what a P&I club is. It's an insurance organization, and it provides insurance cover to ships and traders and charterers. GUARD is Norwegian, one of the biggest in the industry, and I work for them. I also am chair of the Indian Maritime Association UK currently, and I'm a trustee on a charity for seafarers. So I have a few different roles. I also sit on the Maritime Skills Commission, which is set up by the Maritime UK. So it's nice to have different views of the industry. The one I've mostly or the longest involved with is WISTA, but I was a member since 2009, I think, and I've been president for the last 2-3 years. So I also come from a seafaring background in the sense of my father was a seafarer. My first few years were on board a ship. So I grew up on board for the first 5 years. I didn't go to school. I didn't have friends other than seafarers. And the only places I knew were like different countries when we stopped to load or discharge grain or rice or whatever cargo was on board. I mean, I come from the sea very much. So I feel very passionately about seafarers, and I wanted to be a seafarer. But when I was growing up in India, I hadn't seen any females. So seafarers. I had seen females, but not female seafarers. So at 16, 17, when I had to choose a career, suddenly realized I couldn't do what I thought I would do because I wanted to be like daddy. I wanted to be a captain on board. And it wasn't open to me at all. I mean, I don't think anyone actually said to me, Monica, you can't do this. It was just something so evident. No one's done it, so I won't be doing it. So today when I'm here and I see more and more women joining and I can be a help in any way, or I see women who did join, but not from India, maybe from the US or Norway or UK, I just feel so pleased. I kind of live vicariously through them, and I have the ability to live vicariously through them, and through them and with them, we can help younger women. It's great. For me, that part is really exciting, and that's the reason I do what I do, and I am part of where I am, and I'm able to talk to you all, and you all are interested in us because of, all of these changes in the industry.
So straight away you've hit on two big topics that we're both passionate about. One is the ability to see someone who looks like you doing the thing that you want to do. And that's something that the trad industry especially, I think, really needs to work on here in the UK. It's very, very difficult to look on board a ship and see a variety of people. And secondly, your point about having fingers in lots of different pies.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you work with the sea, in the sea, around the sea, for the sea, I think it's a bit of a prerequisite that you have to be good at juggling lots of different things because it opens so many doors. So you think you're going down one corridor but you didn't realise that corridor had 900 doors coming off it for different topics.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and you need transferable intelligence because you bring your learning from one sector to the other, and you learn something in one industry and you bring it to another. So yeah, absolutely. I think if you work in silos, you lose so much. So
yeah, that makes me feel better about all of my projects as well. So thank you.
Oh, 100%. No, absolutely, absolutely. I think it's good to learn a lot because, when sometimes people say something, I'm like, no, but, from the other side, I can see this. And I have seen it, not just I can, but I have seen it. So,
yeah. What kind of ship did your dad have?
He didn't have a ship. I wish. Then I'd be a ship owner's daughter. But he sailed on bulkers, which are basically ships that carry mostly grain. I don't remember much since I was 5 when I got off, but it was mostly grain cargoes. We did runs from Canada to Philippines.
Were there other families there on board as well?
There was the chief engineer's wife was there, and their kids are still friends with us, Jonathan and Jennifer. So I had friends on board some of the ships we sailed in, and there were families on board. I think a lot more than today because my brother was a seafarer also. He sailed with Chevron Texacos. He sailed on oil tankers, but their turnaround time is so short, and they're pretty much. I think it's a very different life on board. So they have hardly, as I hear from my brother, very few of the spouses join them, and the few that join them have not had a good experience. While my mother says she hasn't had a better time than when she was sailing. She loved being on board, reading, doing nothing, having everything done for her,
Yeah.
But then she also had the chance to go ashore for like weeks or days. You discharge for a long time. So
God, it sounds awful.
I know. I mean, you must be, I guess, very happy with your own company. I mean, now you have internet, but that time you didn't even have internet. You just read books or watched videos. Young ladies, do you remember video cassettes? They used to be on board. They used to have libraries of video cassettes.
Oh, I love a good VHS.
Yeah, have an onboard Blockbuster video that you could go and swap things out. That's great. I love that.
A lot of Bollywood.
Excellent. Great. Let's just focus on the Maritime Lawyer thing for a hot sec.
Yeah.
That's quite a role. And you say you wanted to kind of always be part of the sea, but you maybe didn't know how to get there. So Maritime Lawyer, for me, feels quite inaccessible. But that's just me. How did you get there? Like, what was your process there?
So, I think almost everyone who's willing to accept it at 16, 17, when you have to choose a career, you don't know anything. I would have ruder words, but you don't know shit. You just do whatever someone sees. And this is horrible, but I went to one of these inter-university literature or debating competitions or whatever, and there's this really cool moderator, and he had a National Law School t-shirt on, and he looked super cool. And I was like, oh, that seems really interesting. Why don't I do that? I'm going to do shipping anyway, so it doesn't matter the route I do. I was so clear it would be shipping. So I'll be a lawyer and then I can be a maritime lawyer. So I just applied to this university because of this cool looking person. And I got in. And once I got it, of course, it was one of the best universities in India. And I was like, are you stupid? How can you not go? You've got to go. So that's how I ended up doing. So it is inaccessible, or it's not, depending on what's available to you, I guess, and what opens doors to you. So I wouldn't say that law was my dream. Maritime was my dream. Law was a route.
Right.
Hannah and I met on a traineeship, and one of our other trainees from Bermuda, after working with a couple of the museums and sort of cutting through a lot of red tape and bureaucracy over there, she's decided to change the industry on Bermuda from the inside, and she's now looking to be a lawyer.
Oh,
so
fantastic.
That's really interesting.
Oh my God, that's fantastic. I got goosebumps listening to that story.
Yeah,
that's so good.
We'll be sure to put you in touch.
Yeah, that would be amazing, of course. And for me, the best part about the maritime industry, and I think generally seafarers, I think there's landlubbers and there's seafarers, because they just live in a very idealistic or a very accepting world. And then everyone's just how you can connect with, how you can have a drink with, or how you can chat with. And I think they have a very different approach to life. And it's the same around the world. I mean, I grew up in India, of course, and I went to parties in India for seafarers. And when I come to the UK, all of them seem to know the same people, and it's exactly the same, So that's quite nice that my dad seems to know half the people I work with of a certain generation, and my brother seems to know the other people in a different way. So I think all the seafarers, because it's an international world, are connected. And I think they understand that internationalism is a way of life. You cannot anymore be, limited to your bubbles or silos or countries. It's much bigger than that. We're a global village.
We are, completely. It's a global community, isn't it? And it feels like such a niche. It feels like such a niche little thing that we all do, even though there's so many segments of maritime. But it's lovely to think that I could go to the other side of the world and be like, oh, do you know so-and-so?
Yeah.
And someone will.
Or they'll understand what you do, even if they don't know the people. Like if you were in the same community, they all speak the same language in a way. If you follow the shipping cycles, you can predict the financial cycles. When there's a downturn, there's less, goods being moved, and you can pretty much see the connection with the entire world and shipping. So it's a shame that we are kind of hidden away or not forefront unless something goes wrong. Then, of course, shipping does everything wrong.
Suez Canal. Yes, that was like the
Suez Canal is what I was thinking.
Yeah. That was like the moment where everyone was like, oh yeah, my goods are shipped from
Boats.
halfway across the world. You're like, yeah.
The number of calls you would have got saying, oh, you're in shipping, aren't you? What is your opinion? What is your word?
So the types of vessels that you work with then, is it mostly large shipping bulkers and container ships and things like that?
Containers, bulkers. Yeah. So I do shipping law for clubs. I work in their FD&D team. So freight, demurrage, and defense. And essentially, we help them with any contractual disputes that they have. So we help our members, we'd say, with contractual disputes. So if they have, something going wrong, then we advise them, help them strategize. And this is all the clubs, all of us do this. Yeah, so it's all kinds of vessels, it's all kinds of traders, all kinds of charterers. It doesn't matter. The vessel type doesn't matter. Your contract matters in a way. That's my role, yeah.
Right, okay, got you.
So you work with disputes, but do you ever have to touch on things when there's an accident at sea or if something happens? And if not your department, who would get involved? So, for example, in the recent couple of decades, we've lost 3 sail training vessels. 2 of them sank, 1 of them grounded on the rocks. What's the process there when something like that happens? Obviously, the MCA needs to know, but I guess there's an awful lot of law that comes into play when something like that happens.
Yeah, so obviously it's an interplay of departments. In our office, the way it works, we have different teams that look at it. Another part of our team, claims team, would look at it. And they would do the wet kind of work, or they'd look after, the information. And then it's the contractual stuff that flows from it that would come to our team. For example, let's use the Suez Canal, the grounding of the Evergreen vessel. When she was stuck, there are other vessels that were delayed because of that. So those contracts, if they don't arrive in time, the waiting time, who pays for that? The charterers, the owner, what have they negotiated when she arrives late? Or if she's waiting to discharge, who pays for that? So all of that flows from an incident, that's where I or someone like me gets involved in any of the P&I clubs. Or any of the legal teams actually in dry shipping. Or for example, if there's a grounding of a vessel generally, hopefully not a sinking. We don't like sinkings because that leads to loss of life. But if there is a grounding of any sort, then, the consequences of that, the time that she was stuck there, who's liable for that time? Or I'm trying to make this exciting, but it's really hard to explain who pays for a certain amount of time, who pays for expenses, or who pays for the damages, and who pays for repairs, and who's liable. That's essentially where we look at the contract and then, of course, help the members work with the other teams and make it all come together as one cohesive whole so that we can assist our members. It is, obviously, we're third-party insurance providers, so it's a bit removed. It's not directly, like you said, involved in the. It's not our ship that's going down. Is what I'm trying to say.
So you're president of WISTA, which is the Women in Shipping and Trade Association.
UK. So the UK branch.
Did you get into that when you became a maritime lawyer? Did you want to have that representation? Was that, something that you wanted to see? Why did you get involved in it? Why do you think it's important?
So even before I came to UK, we'd heard of WISTA. WISTA was, it was well known. So WISTA started in 1974. So it's been going on. We're going to celebrate 50 years next year of WISTA UK. We're the oldest, and we like to think one of the, we like it. We like WISTA UK. So it's been going on for a long time, and it was one of the few industry bodies, when I at least came to the UK, that we'd all heard of, that was respected and that everyone was kind of networking at. And was holding events for women where women were more visible. It is very different now, but when I first started, if I went to a shipping party or a shipping event, I'd be one of 2 women, 3 maybe. Everyone else would be a spouse of some sort. So everybody kind of remembered you because you were the only woman in shipping. I would only see men on panels. I would hardly even see a woman on a panel. If I wouldn't even see them in the audience, I would never see them on the panel. So at least WISTA was trying to make women more visible. It got the audience thinking. It asked the questions. If there was a WISTA member in the audience, I always felt they raised the voice and said, "But what about women at sea? Or what about women in shore? Or where are the women?" And the minute I moved to London, I joined WISTA UK as a member. Went to the events, tried and connected. Boys connect really well. They go for drinks, they go for golf. Women traditionally have not had those networks, but now I think it's growing, and I hope WISTA is one part of it. Our goal is to provide a network, provide a safe space for women to come and talk about issues or connect, make recommendations. I think it's doing a good job, which is why it's succeeding and growing. And we've got 57 national WISTA associations worldwide. We have an international executive committee that kind of oversees everything. It's a fantastic network. And when you go there and you see only women in shipping, oh my God, it's such a high. Women talking shipping and then just, making friends across the world and growing. So you must come for these events, especially the international conferences. They're so much fun.
Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps now. I mean, I'm thrilled.
Yeah, you should come. It's great fun. And I remember last time, I can't remember which, maybe it was the Norway AGM, and we were all in this north of Norway, Northern Lights, fantastic, and we're all dressed up, and we can't stop talking because you're connecting. I remember the compere saying, "Can you stop talking? I want to move on." And no, we're just, and that only happens, I think, when you come to such an industry or maybe only women event. And it's rare that you have those professional women events. So I remember having so much fun and thinking, "Oh my God, this is so much fun. We've got to dress up, we've got people to dance with, and we can chat all night." Fantastic.
Yeah, great.
You touched on your dad being quite a big influence, and also your childhood and your upbringing. Have you got anyone else you looked up to throughout your life that helped inspire you to think, I want to work with the sea? Although, to be honest, I mean, you've been doing it all your life anyway, so you at this point are the inspiration.
Yeah. No. I think it's as you said earlier. It's you have to see it to be it, and if one person can look and see, okay, Monica from India could do it, then that's fantastic. Anyone who can see a different person and is, I'm not saying inspired or anything, just able to say, oh yeah, if she can do it, so can I. That's fantastic. Yeah. That's enough. You don't need to do more. My dad, yes, was a huge influence, and I think almost all the women I know who've been successful have had strong fathers. Because of a generation, the men were the voice of the family. Until fairly recently, I think you could say that 90% of families, if the man said no, you couldn't do so many things. So I think at least of my generation and older, we're all where we are because our parents supported us, our dads supported us, And actually, we were just speaking about this last evening, about how none of us are where we are by ourselves. We've all been helped by someone. We may not recall the exact way, but it could be like, I'm not getting a job, and someone called me and said, look, don't worry, come for a drink. You'll get there. Or you're not getting the job you want, or, there have been so many people. There's a network of individuals that help you, and no one is where they are without help.
Mm-hmm. So it comes back to community, doesn't it? We are a community.
Yeah. And you don't know how your life has helped someone else. For example, we met. I met someone the other day, a really young lady, and she's like, "Hi, Monica, do you remember me?" And I'm like, "No, but how nice to see you," because she must have been at a WISTA event. She's like, "You don't remember me, but Monica, I remember you because I came for an event. I was telling you I was looking for a job, and you just introduced me and said, well, then meet this lady. And I have a job now because of that one meeting." Isn't that amazing? And I did nothing except introduce her at a drink, and everything fell into place for her. I just think that that's what it is. Everyone helps you, and they don't need to do much, or they don't even need to remember it. And in the same way, like the number of people that have helped me, just by saying, I believe in you, or don't give up, or come and have, you can offload on me or something. I would say I'm grateful to London. I would say I'm grateful to UK because the number of people that have helped me get to where I am is incredible. So I think people are really, really nice in the industry and even otherwise. You'll always come across some people who are not, but they make the ones who are nice even better. So
absolutely. So the Rewriting Women in Maritime History project, How did you first hear about that? And were you instantly like, yes, I must be involved in this?
Oh, 100%. Come on. The minute you have something like that, of course you would be involved as WISTA, as a woman in maritime. But I think there's so much that hasn't been said. And women pirates, I didn't know enough about this. So that's my next goal, is to just go back and read on that. And there's so many interesting stories that have just been tucked away. So I'm really happy it's coming to the forefront. Yeah, history is so important, to give everyone a sense of belonging and beings. That, of course, the day I heard, I was like, I want to be present. And I just thought it would be a smaller project. It's really become huge.
No, it's going to be great. And they're really hoping to take it across the world as well, aren't they? So it's starting here, but...
Yes, so I think phase 1 is UK and phase 2 is rest of the world. So.
And when you're done reading about women pirates, have a deep dive into women in sea shanties, because that is a fascinating topic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear about it. So tell me.
So if you hear a sea shanty and it's like got a generic name like Mary, so, oh, my Mary is back at home. Like, I can't remember which way around it is, but like a Mary is your wife who you love at home. Another name like Susie or something might be a mistress in a port. But there's like these certain names that just represent a type of woman in sea shanties and sea songs.
Oh, interesting.
So it's fascinating.
So on that note, and before we sign off, I'm going to tell you, since you mentioned names, so my name is Monica. And I'm called Monica but when my mom and dad got together and decided on their kids, my dad apparently told my mom, if you have a girl, I'm going to call her Monica. My mom's like, yeah, he can say whatever he likes. I'm like, listen to this. But of course, he won. Spoiler alert. But apparently, the reason he chose Monica is because he had a Russian girlfriend at some point whose name was Monica, and she was very beautiful. So he always felt if I had a daughter, I would call her Monica.
Oh, controversial.
And that's why I'm called Monica. And, kudos to my mom for letting it happen. She gave me a different name at birth. My dad was like, nothing doing. She's Monica.
I love this.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm very happy for that story to stay in.
Yeah.
I will send that snippet to my dad and mom because they still fight about it.
Yeah.
I might open the podcast with that story. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. Yeah.
Absolutely. And mention Captain Kohli because he did it.
Captain Kohli. The good Captain Kohli and his Russian girlfriend. I love this. This is great.
Yeah.
Monica, it's been so much fun.
Yeah, it's been great fun chatting with you guys.
Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye, guys.
I'd love to meet Captain Kohli. He sounds like a bit of a lad.
He sounds great, yeah.
I'd love to meet her mum as well. She's got to be a hard
she
woman.
Sounds great. Yeah, lovely. Right, Jess, I think we should probably skip her screaming at us.
Well, you better not be screaming at us because we know a maritime lawyer.
That's true.
Right, shall we go and sort the lines out?
Mm-hmm, okay.
Bloody seagulls everywhere again.
They really are, and I'm not going to lie, Jess, they've ruined our rope.
They're absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
Anyway, are you ready on that forward spring?
Ready.
Okay, spring off.
Done. Oh my god, Jess, you just...
What?
Look around, look
What?
at that seagull. He just... Oh my god, just smashed into that boat.
Oh, can you reach him with the boat hook?
Yeah, I'll try. Yeah, okay.
Got him.
Oh, he's so cute. I'm going to call him Bill.
I think we're just going to have to take him with us.
Yeah. Hey, we've got so much seagull food on board. That's really useful.
Wow, wasn't that fortuitous?
Wasn't that fortuitous?
Right, there's too much going on here, dear listeners, so we're going to have to go. Until next time, fair winds.
Fair winds.